You know, Owl is having its troubles right now, but the show must go on. Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia here and welcome back to the Overwatch Contenders Roundup 2020. So, even though the Overwatch League matches might not be going ahead, the Contenders matches are still in full swing. So, we are going to go through South Korea, China, the Pacific and Australia in this video. They are both at different stages of their Contenders seasons right now. And this is going to be one of a double header, because tomorrow we will be taking a look at South America, Europe and North America to look at their trials results for week 2. But first of all, we are going to take a look at Korea and China, because we now have their full week 1 results in. So, let's start off in China then. And in China we saw Team CC, Bilibili Gaming, Flag Gaming, Light Gaming, The One Winner, Like This Player, First Fabulous Fighter and Cosmos Veritas Gaming. So, let's see the results for China week 1 then. And in the quarterfinals we saw Team CC taking on LTP, which is Like This Player. And this was a 3-1 win for Team CC. Again, Team CC come into this as a very strong team. They always have been. So it'll be interesting to see where they end up. LTP, Like This Player, they will be dropping down back to trials for week 2, and that's unfortunate, but perhaps expected somewhat considering they did come up from trials in week 1. Moving on, and we have Light Gaming taking on The One Winner. This was a really close game with both teams very, very close in skills, but Light Gaming do get perhaps an expected 3-2 win over The One Winner. The One Winner, another team that came up from trials in week 1, will be going back down to those trials for week 2. Light Gaming were part of that seeding tournament and were already in the main contenders tournament, and they will be staying there. So, moving on, and we had Bilibili Gaming taking on First Fabulous Fighter. This will be a 3-1 win for Bilibili Gaming. Bilibili Gaming is the academy team of Hangzhou Spark, if you didn't know. Team CC is actually the academy team of Shanghai Dragons, I believe, as well. So, Bilibili Gaming will be moving on to the semi-finals. And last of all, we had Flag Gaming take on Cosmos Veritas Gaming. And this would be a 3-2 win for Flag Gaming. You can see a trend here. All of the trials teams lost in this week of competition for Chinese contenders. They will all be dropping back down to 2 trials for week 2. And we will be seeing the same teams qualify automatically for the main contenders tournament for week 2. So in the semi-finals, we saw Team CC taking on Light Gaming. This would be a 3-0 win for Team CC. And Bilibili Gaming will be taking on Flag Gaming. This will be a very close, but a 3-2 win for Bilibili Gaming. And the 2 academy teams will be fighting it off in the final, where Team CC will come out with a 3-0 victory over Bilibili and get that win in the first week of Chinese Contenders for 2020 Season 1. This means that it'll be Team CC taking home that 100 points for this week and that $10,000 US prize money. And then we have Bilibili Gaming with those 50 points, Light Gaming and Flag Gaming taking home 35 points and 20 points for the 4 trials teams. And they will carry over as they do in Contenders, and they will be rounded together at the end to decide the teams going to playoffs. But that is China. Now it's time to go to Korea. And I tell you what, this was surprising. This was very, very surprising. So, in Korea, we had Runaway, O2 Blast, Gen.G, Element Mystic, Team BM, Metaranthena, T1, World Game Star Phoenix, Batlicker, the OZ Gaming, Lucky Future, and GC Busan Wave. So, it's going to be a really interesting one, this one. So, let's start off with the bracket then. Round of 12, or the first round as I call it. WGS Phoenix, World Game Star, versus Batlicker. This would be a 3-1 win for WGS, as to be expected. WGS have been very good so far. Team BN taking on Lucky Future. Again, Lucky Future have got a pretty stacked roster, so I expect them to do fairly well, and they do indeed get a 3-0 win over Team BM, who were the number 1 seed coming from trials, so Team BM will be going straight back there for week 2. Lucky Future will be moving to the quarterfinals. T1 would take on GC Busan Wave. This will be a 3-0 win for T1. Remember that T1 used to be the academy team of the Philadelphia Fusion, and they rebranded, and now you can't have an academy team outside of your region anyway, so I don't think they're actually affiliated with the Fusion anymore. But they were the academy team of the Fusion that kind of struggled last year. So, Moving on, we had Metaranthena taking on OZ Gaming, and this would be a 3-0 win for OZ Gaming, which is, again, it's a bit of a surprise. Metaranthena came in as the number 2 seed from Trials, so we expected them to do better than this. They'll be going straight back to Trials for Week 2 in Korea. Moving on to the quarterfinals then, and this is where our seeding tournament teams come into it. And, yeah, Runaway versus World Game Star Phoenix. Runaway are number 1 seed. We all know Runaway, don't we? Well, they lost 3-1 to the World Game Star Phoenix and will be competing in Contenders Trials Korea Week 2 Season 1 2020. I cannot believe I am saying that Runaway are going to be in Trials. Whoa, okay. Big win for World Game Star there. Very unexpected. Runaway, work to do. Work to do. Whew. Then we had Element Mystic taking on Lucky Future. This would be a 3-0 win for Element Mystic. As you would expect, Element Mystic are a very good team. Lucky Future, they have a stacked roster, but Element Mystic are always, well, I don't want to say always, but they always look like they've got that little bit more coming from the higher echelons of this Korean region. And Element Mystic show their class here and get through to the semi-finals. Moving on, we had O2 Blast taking on T1. O2 Blast, they're not a shabby team, are they? You know, they run with the likes of Runaway, Element Mystic, Gen.G. They've always been at the top end of Korean contenders, right? Well, yeah, that's another team that's going to be competing in Trials next week. T1 get a 3-2 win over O2 Blast, and yeah, that's another shocker. What can I say? Yep. No words. No words. Moving on, Gen.G taking on OZ Gaming, and we return to a bit of normality here with Gen.G getting a 3-1 win over OZ Gaming, with them moving on to the semi-finals. So, semi-finals then. All of these teams will be competing in the main contenders tournament for Week 2 in Korea. WGS Phoenix taking on Element Mystic then. You know, they got a good win over Runaway. And we thought, yeah, that's a great clutch win, but Element Mystic surely it's going to be a step too far. And WGS Phoenix are like, well, hold my beer. 3-0. They wipe the floor with Element Mystic. Wow. Wow. Okay, moving on. Okay, it gets even more interesting, doesn't it? T1 taking on Gen.G. Yes, 3-0 for T1. All of the seeding tournament teams were out before the grand final. All of the teams we expect to be at the top of Korean contenders are out before the grand final. The grand final is between the two trials teams, T1 and WGS Phoenix. T1 get a 3-0 win over WGS Phoenix and take home the crown of Week 1 champions in Korea for Season 1. I couldn't have predicted this. I don't think a lot of people would have predicted this. T1 have definitely improved since we last saw them, but to the extent where they knock out O2 Blast, knock out Gen.G, and then knock out the team that knock out Element Mystic and Runaway? Yeah. Yeah, that happened. That was a really weird week. So, taking home the 100 points will be T1, 50 points to World Game Star Phoenix, 35 to Element Mystic and Gen.G, 20 to Runaway, Lucky Future, O2 Blast and OZ Gaming, and then 10 to Betlicker, Team BM, GC Busan Wave, and Metaranthena. And I can't believe that I'm saying that Runaway and O2 Blast are now going to be dropping to Trials for Week 2. So, look out Trials teams, because you're going to get the blast back from those two after they did not live up to expectations in the first week. But we are now going to move on to Week 2 action, because we've got to cover the Australian region and the Pacific region and their results. We've got Trials and the main tournament to go through here. So, in Trials for Australia Week 2, we saw Athletico Esports, Paradigm Shift, Warriors Esports, Scrimbucks, X69 Gaming, Rev Dogs, Biggest on Our Level, ADSL2 Plus, God Mode, Memento Forgiver, Min Young, and 1HP. So, moving on to the bracket then, and we saw in the first round, Rev Dogs taking on Memento Forgiver. This would be a 3-0 win for Memento Forgiver. X69 Gaming will take on 1HP. This would be a 3-0 win for X69 Gaming. ADSL2 Plus would take on God Mode. This would be a 3-1 win for ADSL2 Plus. And Baguette on Our Level will be take on Ming Young, and Ming Young will get a 3-2 win over Baguette on Our Level. So, moving on, and Paradigm Shift would take on Memento Forgiver in the quarterfinals. This would be a 3-1 win for Paradigm Shift. Atletico Esports would take on X69 Gaming. This would be a 3-0 win for X69 Gaming, with them moving on. That's a bit of a surprise. Scrimbucks taking on ESL2+. This would be a 3-0 win for Scrimbucks, with them moving on. And then Warriors Esports taking on Mingyang, and no surprises here that Warriors Esports get a 3-0 win and move on. Then in the semi-finals, we see Paradigm Shift take on X69 Gaming. This would be a 3-1 win for X69 Gaming. Again, that's a bit of a surprise, with them moving on. And then Scrimbucks taking on Warriors Esports, and no surprises here that Warriors Esports get the 3-1 win over Scrimbucks and move on to the grand final, where we see them take on X69 Gaming, and Warriors Esports would get the 3-0 win and move on as champions of Trials Week 2 in South America. Now, something unique happens here, right? Because we're in Week 2 now, after Week 2 of Contenders, we see another Open Division season, so it will be Season 2. And so, some people will be dropping down for Open Division Season 2 playoffs. And this is how it worked out. So, the teams going through to Overwatch Contenders Week 2 will be Warriors Esports, X69 Gaming, Paradigm Shift, Scrimbucks, Memento Forgiver, Atletico Esports, ADSL2+, and Mingyang. And in the 4 teams dropping down to Open Division Season 2 playoffs will be Rev Dogs, 1HP, God Mode, and Baguette on our level. So they will compete in Season 2 of Open Division when it gets to its playoff stage. So, moving on to the main tournament for Week 2 in Australia, and we see those teams joining Sydney Drop Bears, Mindfreak, NoWeaver Esports, and Ground Zero Gaming in the main tournament. So, starting off with round 1 then, and we see Paradigm Shift take on Atletico Esports. This was a 3-0 win for Paradigm Shift, with them moving on to the quarterfinals. Then we see Warriors Esports taking on Memento Forgiver. This would be a 3-0 win for Warriors Esports, with them moving on. Scrimbucks will take on Mingyang. This would be a 3-0 win for Scrimbucks. And X69 Gaming would take on ADSL2+, with X69 Gaming getting a narrow 3-2 win over ADSL2+. So, moving on to the quarterfinals, and we see Ground Zero Gaming taking on Paradigm Shift. No surprise here that Ground Zero Gaming get a 3-0 win. Mindfreak would take on Warriors Esports, 3-0 win for Mindfreak here. And then NoWeaver's Esports would be taking on Scrimbucks, again, 3-1 for NoWeaver, no surprises. And Sydney Drop Bears would take on X69 Gaming, and it would be a 3-0 win for Sydney Drop Bears. All of the Contenders Week 1 teams that qualified automatically would be going through to the semi-finals. So, we would see Ground Zero Gaming taking on Mindfreak. This would be a 3-0 win for Ground Zero Gaming. And then NoWeaver would take on Sydney Drop Bears, and it would be a 3-0 win for Sydney Drop Bears. In the grand final, we would see Ground Zero Gaming take on Sydney Drop Bears, and it would be a 3-1 win for Ground Zero Gaming, for them to take their second title in succession. Week 1 and Week 2, they are both champions, picking up those 100 points in both cases, and they are certainly at the top of the table in Contenders Australia right now. So, moving on to the Pacific then, and we start off with Trials as we did in Australia, and in Trials we would see Far East Society, UND, Cyclone Coupling, IU, Xavier Esports, Lord of Dragon Esports, NNT Kingdom, Global Esports, Zero, Team for Revenge, Fearless Gaming, and Ares Gaming. And in round 1 we would see Global Esports take on Zero. This would be a 3-0 win for Global Esports, with them moving on. Lord of Dragon Esports will take on Fearless Gaming. This would be a 3-1 win for Lord of Dragon, with them moving on. NNT Kingdom would take on TFR, Team for Revenge, and this would be a 3-1 win for TFR, with them moving on. And Xavier Esports will take on Ares Gaming, and this would be a 3-1 win for Ares Gaming, with Xavier Esports knocked out of Trials at this point, which actually is a bit of a surprise because they came down from Contenders last week. For a lot of teams, it's not going as planned. But moving on to the quarterfinals, and we see UND take on Global Esports. This would be a 3-2 win for UND, with Global Esports going out at this point. Cyclone Coupling would take on Lord of Dragon Esports. This would be a 3-1 win for Lord of Dragon Esports, with them moving on. IU would take on TFR. This would be a 3-0 win for TFR, with them moving on. And Far East Society would take on Ares Gaming, and it would be a 3-0 win for Far East Society, with them moving on. In the semi-finals, we saw UND take on Lord of Dragon Esports. This would be a 3-2 win for Lord of Dragon Esports, and TFR take on Far East Society. This would be a narrow 3-2 win for Far East Society. And then in the final, we would see Far East Society forfeit the match, and therefore Champions of Trials Week 2 in the Pacific will be Lord of Dragon Esports, and they will go into the main tournament as #1 seed. Talking of the main tournament, let's get on to that then. In the main tournament, we saw Talon Esports, Zenith, Bayaba and Greenleaves join the fray here from the automatic qualifying in Week 1. And getting onto the bracket in round 1, we saw UND take on Global Esports. This would be a 3-2 win for UND, with them moving on and Global Esports out of the picture. Lord of Dragons would take on IU. This would be a 3-1 win for Lord of Dragon, and they will be moving on. TFR would take on Ares Gaming, and this would be a 3-1 win for TFR, with them moving on. Far East Society would take on Cyclone Coupling, and it would be a 3-0 win for Far East Society, and they are into the quarterfinals. And this is where the big boys come in. So, Talon Esports would take on UND. This would be a 3-0 win for Talon Esports. I'm sure we all know how powerful Talon Esports are in the Pacific. You get the drift. Greenleaves would take on Lord of Dragons. This would be a 3-0 win for Lord of Dragons. Again, they're doing very well and will appear in the main contenders tournament for Week 3, so they're very well done to them. Zenith taking on TFR would be a 3-1 win for TFR, with them moving on, and Bayaba taking on Far East Society. We had a 3-2 win for Bayaba, and they will be moving on to the semi-finals. In the semi-finals, we saw Talon Esports taking on Lord of Dragons. Again, this was a step too far for Lord of Dragon, and this would be a 3-0 win for Talon Esports. Yeah, there's a trend in the Pacific. I'm sure everyone picks up on it. TFR would take on Bayaba, and this would be a 3-0 win for Bayaba. The final was set up as Bayaba taking on Talon Esports. Do you want to hazard a guess? 3-0 win for Talon Esports. Talon Esports are the champion of Pacific for the second week in a row. I could not have predicted that when I came into this week. So Talon Esports topped the table on 200 points in the Pacific. Closely, I say closely, it's not close, they're 115 points behind, followed by Bayaba in second. So that is your round out for those regions. It's been a bit of a long one, I understand that, but tomorrow will be a bit shorter where we go through the South American, North American and European trials results for Week 2. And it's getting exciting now because we're hitting that midway point in Season 1 where we get to see Open Division again. So that should be really interesting. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.